What is up, you guys? Thank you so much for tuning in with me today. If you're new to the channel, hi, I'm Jonathan Deputy, and I homestead here in Middle Georgia Zone 8B. And if you've been here a while, well, I appreciate you guys for sticking around even when I'm not the most consistent. So our onions are ready to be harvested. There's some garlic at the end of the bed too, and I have a space for it to set out so it can cure, but I need to pick it, so I thought I'd bring you guys along. So here are all the onions, and I mean, there's quite a few in here, and some of them look rough, but you know a garlic is ready to harvest when it falls over at the top, and these have been sitting for quite some time because I just haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm just now getting to it. So I'll pull all of these, and just like that. And they're kind of small. I mean, these are some small onions, but you can't win every year. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these pulled, and I have a place under the shed for them to go. So ones like this, where they've bolted, these won't store, and so those are going to have to be used immediately. So I will probably leave those in the ground and then come back for them later. But you could just pick them and put them in your refrigerator, and you can use the stalks in floral arrangements, or you can eat them like chives, or honestly whatever floats your boat. But once they bolt like that, they won't hold for storage, so you need to go ahead and use those ones. Like I said, a lot of the garlic, I left it a little long, but you basically want about 2/3 of the leaves to die before you pull it, and they should have created little heads on here, so that's a pretty small piece. Let's check and see if this one's a little bigger. Oh yeah, that one's a little bit larger, a little bit nicer sized clove here. It's a little damp, but we'll roll with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these all harvested and set out for drying. Now, something you could do, and a lot of people do this, is they'll lay their onions out and they'll just leave them for a couple weeks and let them cure just like on the soil, just like this. But we're supposed to expect some rain, and I just can't leave these any longer, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull them and put them in a well-ventilated area where they have good airflow and air circulation, and cure them for a couple of weeks under the tool shed. Really what you're looking for is just a cool, dry space with good air circulation. A basement would work, a root cellar would work, any of those things would work, but we don't have a root cellar, so we will make do. Here is the setup. So I moved a whole ton of stuff to fit this in here. This is like a chicken isolation box, if that makes sense. I originally built it to stay in the garden at all times, so then even when there was stuff growing in the garden, I could bring the chickens in. But really, it's just been used as a secondary space for chickens with problems that need to be separated for a temporary amount of time, and it works pretty well. But I'm going to use this, and I'm going to lay all of the onions on here because it'll have air circulation coming up from the bottom, so they'll kind of be hovering. So let's just kind of hope that this works. So I'm just going to basically just lay them all across here. back with a Lowe's bucket because I'm just gonna grab the garlic and I'm gonna grab the kind of not sweet red onion. So I planted some sweet reds and some reds that are not sweet. So I wanted to make sure that the red ones didn't get mixed up because that would be disappointing if you thought you had a sweet red onion to end up with a spicy one. And so I just brought out a Lowe's bucket because I don't need the wheelbarrow for this. So, I mean, the garlic looks okay. Like this one's rotten, see? And this is like what I was worried about happening over here. That one looks okay. We'll see. We shall see. We won't judge prematurely because like, you know, we'll see. I know some people online were having some rough garlic harvests. That looks rough. That's pretty rough. So we shall see what happens. I told myself last year I got them harvested super late, and I told myself this year I was going to do it super early because I would be home and I would get it on time and all that, you know, stuff that wasn't true, stuff I didn't stay true to. So it went a little longer than I would have liked, but it doesn't look terrible. So we'll get the rest of this harvested. So I haven't gotten a science down on the onions and the garlic. It's just kind of one of those things. I just grow it and hope for the best. And I think that's all you can do, really. This is a variety called California garlic. I think it's California softneck garlic is what it is. And I did a really cool shoot with it last year of photos. So I got my brother to stand on a ladder and take a picture of me surrounded by the garlic. The garlicky goodness. I felt like garlic bread. But we'll see. We'll see how this garlic ends up looking because we may recreate it with garlic, or we may just do onions, baby. That may be what we do. But either way, I have not gotten this down to a science. So it's just kind of see what happens. Some people are big believers in fertilizing. So maybe I need to get some sort of blood meal. I think a lot of them use blood meal to fertilize their garlic. So maybe I need to look into that. Because to be honest, I'm not really blown away with the garlic. It doesn't look the greatest. I feel like the outside leaves have kind of gotten soft, which isn't great. But, you know, we shall see. I think genuinely a big part of gardening is just trying different things all the time. Like, and I think I feel a lot better too, because like I don't have our winter squash planted. It's June, and I don't have our winter squash planted, and I'm not worrying about it because I have plenty of time. People up north have just planted their stuff, and we have a much longer growing season for this stuff. So we'll probably be okay. See, this garlic looks kind of what I wanted it to. It's kind of drier and more papery, so we'll see. But I think that the garden is never done. Like, the work in the garden is never done. There's always work to be done in the garden. Like, always. There's always weeds to pull. There's always something to be planting. And so I don't ever put that pressure on myself to, like, get everything done, because you're never going to have everything done. You just do as much as you can, and you try and utilize your time in a productive way, and you move on. And if you don't get some stuff planted, it's okay. You always have next year. So here's a bucket of garlic, possibly a thumbnail. Let's see. We'll see how that turns out. I never pose for thumbnails, and I always think I should, but that's from rotten garlic. Alright, so those are all the onions harvested. We got our garlic there on the end. I'm pretty happy. We got a total of 302 onions. I did not count these little doodads here because they're awful small, but I did count ones that kind of looked like this because I felt like I just did. So the sweet onions were consistently the largest in here, so we'll be using probably those the very most, and I'm quite happy about that. But we got 55 kind of regular red onions, 110 sweet onions, we got 67 white onions, and 70 of these sweet red onions. All of these are sweet except for these red ones down here, and then we have 62 cloves of garlic, some of which I counted all of those, and some of them are quite tiny. So we shall see, but looking forward to storing those away. Okay, so with onions, when you harvest them, they're either going to shrivel up and die completely, all the green is, or they're going to fall over. That's typically what they do. Or they've all started to bolt and go to flower, so you're picking them all to prevent that from happening, because once it bolts like that, it won't store. Once you have them harvested, you can leave them sitting out where you harvested them on the ground. But if you're going to be running sprinklers and they're going to get wet, or if you're expecting rain, or if it's really close to a first frost, then you're not going to want to do that. You're going to want to move them into a covered area or a temperature controlled environment if you have access to that. I do not have a good temperature controlled place to stick them, so I just stick them in the tool shed because it's very open and it has good airflow and good air circulation. You're going to want to take them, you can put them in the garage. You're just going to want to put them in a thin single layer, and you can put them on top of cardboard, newspaper, you can put them on a pallet, wood, whatever, and just let them sit. And they'll, when it's time to put them away for storage is when they've been sitting for a long time and their tops have completely browned and their roots have shriveled and their skins on the outside have dried. Then you're going to want to take them. You can braid them if you want to. I've seen people braid onions, but typically you'll cut that off. You'll trim the roots a little bit. You'll brush extra dirt off. If there's any skins just hanging, you'll pull those off. And then you can put them in a cool, dark, dry place for storage. You can put them in a basket, a burlap bag, whatever. You just want it to be a cool, dark, dry place. Now, garlic is pretty similar to onions. You want about 1 to 2/3 of the leaves to die from the bottom up on it before you harvest it, or until it falls over. Just keep in mind, you do not want all of the leaves on the garlic to die, because each leaf is a protective coating layer. You know, when you're like using garlic and it's that white papery skin, okay, the leaves go from the bottom out. So they go, like, each leaf that dies, that's a papery skin protection that's dying off with it. So you don't want all of them to die or they'll rot in the ground and they won't store. So you want just some of them to die, just 1 to 2/3 of it from the bottom up, or you want to wait until it falls over. Once you do that, the drying process is the same with the onions. Put it in a cool, dry place with good airflow, air circulation, keep it out of direct sunlight. Once they're ready to be stored, the leaves are going to be completely dry, the roots are going to shrivel up, and you're going to have nice white papery skin. All the dirt's going to be nice and powdery, and you can rub it off. And then you just clean it up for storage, trim the roots, you can braid the garlic, you can just cut it and put it in baskets and store it in a cool, dark, dry place, and you'll have garlic. Now, like I said, I do not have it down to an exact science with growing our onions and garlic and what works perfectly for us. That's kind of the general rules that I use to follow, but it's going to differ depending on where you live. We live in a very hot, humid climate. You may live in a very hot, dry climate, or you may live in a very cool, damp climate. It's just going to differ depending on what your climate is like and what resources you have available to you, and what grows well for you. So I haven't gotten ours down to an exact science when it comes to storage or any of those things. Storage is always an issue. So, but yeah, that's what I do, and I hope that was helpful. One last thing I want to leave you guys with is that remember that when you're growing a garden, the things you harvest from your garden are not going to look like the things you get from the grocery store, because the produce that you get from a grocery store has been grown in controlled environments, or they've been grown by companies where their sole focus is perfecting that one thing, whether that be tomatoes or onions and garlic, and the things you get from the grocery store have been sprayed with synthetic fertilizers and chemicals, and what you're growing in the garden has not been sprayed with those things. It's been grown with a lot more love and a lot more heart, and you've put a lot more work, blood, sweat, and tears into the food that you grow for your family. And remember that every garden has weeds. Remember that every garden has successes and failures, and that the work is never finished. So when you grow a garden or when you're pulling in your harvest, remember to give yourself grace as you go forward, because you can't expect it to produce the same quality or quantity that a grocery store does. That is, a big business run with chemicals and synthetic fertilizers. Until next time.